It occurs to me that when I talk about life or liytrons, that they bunch together, and so you get issuing forth many together, few together, many, few, many, few. And the oscillation between the two as regards your reception of such gives you the wavelength of what you refer to as light waves, perhaps photons, or perhaps radiomagnetic waves. The waves are in fact of even more incredibly minute particles being sent in pulses with a low and a high, low and a high, low and a high. And the more frequent the pulse, well, obviously the shorter the wavelength, so to speak, and you see it as a brighter object or whatever. So that I think in an earlier recording, I'll give the reference when I find it. I've referred to liyftronz, and I've said liytrons similarly. I'm not just talking about electrons, or simply talking about the overall effect of the liyftronz or liytrons bunching together. The overall effect is what you call the electromagnetic or light wave effect. But it's made up of streaming pulse of tiny particles that I've called liyftronz or liytrons. I've called them either or both because I think it's the same thing, that there's some incredible link between light and life. You know, in the scripture we have it, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And someone pointed out to me, this is before he's created the sun and the moon and so forth, you know, that life and all matter is made of these minute particles that are perhaps somehow closely linked to thought. You know, I see the apparent universe, the space especially, as the matrix of God's mind. I don't mean this is some profound insight. I just mean it's a working hypothesis until a more useful understanding is gained. But that I think I'm supposing that the liytrons, you could think of them as fundamental particles, but I think more a sort of each one is a pulse. So when I say the liytrons are bunching together, I think I mean the pulses are coming in. Profusion and scarcity, profusion, scarcity, profusion, scarcity. In other words, it's the wavelength of the mind of God. And I would like to say you could change these wavelengths so that a different thought is therefore made. You can imagine passing it through a sieve or a lens, so to speak, and the thought comes out different to what you feed in because you've changed the wavelength, the bunching of these thought impulses in the mind of God, and we're in the mind of God. You know, this concrete desk and computer exists in that it exists in some sort of bound form of these impulses, which are accessed from our point of view, from the point of view of touch or sight and so forth. Our senses can sense they're there. And we say this desk exists, and it exists in this static way because God holds what we call matter in that wavelength for as long as He does. And perhaps you can influence that with your thoughts, because your thoughts are within His mind, and therefore each does have an opportunity of access to each other, always. Being of the same substance, in the same medium, mainly Him. Everything is in God. And God, from that point of view, I'm thinking of as being represented by the vastness of space. What seems unlimited and maybe, and because we're not clear on what way God is thinking, what it even means to say this.